Good evening, I'm Jason Vio. Katarina is off tonight. This is CBC Windsor News. Thank you for watching. Tonight, police have an update on the Boule murder case. Plus, hazy conditions in our region continue due to wildfires across the country. We'll look at health impacts and if there's any relief coming. A Windsor woman and her granddaughter thought they were going to Taylor Swift's sold-out concert in Detroit this weekend. That's until they fell victim to an unusual scam on Facebook. And the popularity of old collectible video games. We head into one local man's basement to take a look at his prized collection. And we begin tonight with new details about the murder of Sarah Boule. Boule's family saying they are shattered by her death as police confirm that they have now found her body. Officers shut down the 1900 block of Northway on Tuesday. Investigators were seen on site searching through a wooded area. Now, there was an extensive search that included the OPP's canine unit. Today, police confirming that Boule's body was recovered. And now an autopsy has been completed, although they have not released the cause of death. And police have charged Boule's estranged husband with first-degree murder, saying they arrested 45-year-old Brian Aaron Marbury near the Windsor-Detroit tunnel on Monday. Boule's mother, Fartumo Kuso, says her daughter's death has left her feeling shattered. Posting on Facebook, "I have no words to describe the depth of my sadness and height of my rage." Kuso asked for people to, quote, "continue to pray for my daughter's eternal peace and my family's patience as we get through this unimaginable loss." And news of Boule's death has led to a call for action. Earlier this week, the director of Windsor's 24-hour crisis center for intimate partner violence says domestic violence is a growing problem. Tonight, the Violence Against Women Coordinating Committee Windsor-Essex says femicide is an epidemic. Co-chair Shelley Gilbert says there are barriers to getting people out of dangerous relationships, but wants people to know that others have options who can help.
I think that we've really got to be in tune with the trends and needs of our community and recognize things such as the real lack of housing available, the really severe vacancy rate that we're living with right now. And so, when women are in shelter or when they are couch surfing now with friends and family and they've got their children in tow, we've got to recognize that we need to build additional housing and transitional housing so that women with additional supports can begin transitioning out of shelter, off the couches of friends and families, and feel again that they have a safe environment that they can grow in and that they can raise their children in. Any of the service providers, Hiatus House, for instance, other service providers in the city, including a project that we have that involves a lawyer at Legal Assistance of Windsor, that involves a lawyer and a social worker that can provide the information people need if they're considering going to police and making a report, and what that whole situation would look like for them. If they need information around family court, they need to also have a risk assessment done that's going to help to safety plan, help to determine what the legal advice of our lawyer is going to give. So getting that information, there are services. Legal Assistance of Windsor is one, Hiatus House is one, Victim Services provides that information. And part of our coordination and collaboration from a service provider perspective is to ensure that we're all talking to each other about what those services are so that we could talk about each other's services. But getting that information from a lawyer, from a social worker that can follow you along this journey and not leave you after that information, I think is crucially important, because this isn't just getting information and then you walk away and action it, right? This is when you are feeling afraid and you have the information, you need somebody to walk with you. You need somebody to talk you through, the anxiety that you have and the fears that you're going through. And so we want to make sure that those services are available to give the information and then help people to actualize that information as well.
And there are a number of places you can contact if you need help. You can call Victim Services of Windsor-Essex at 519-723-2711. For 24-hour help, you can call the Crisis Center, and that's at 519-253-9667. And here's a live look outside of our region here in downtown Windsor. You can see the smoky conditions that continue across our area. There is sometimes the smell of a lingering fire in the air, and that might stick around. Environment Canada has an air quality advisory in place for Windsor, Sarnia, and Chatham, and that's been there since Tuesday. While the health risk caused by air quality was low to moderate as of this afternoon, higher levels are forecasted for the latter part of today into Friday. Now, school boards across Windsor-Essex are dealing with this on a case-by-case basis, so some students might stay in for recess and lunch breaks. Now, there's a bit of relief in the forecast. Some rain through the weekend could mean an improvement. And those better conditions are music to the ears of some local contractors who have been scaling back in light of these smoky conditions. One local landscaper is putting off much of his work until things clear. The owner-operator of Lawn Guys says that they are only doing jobs that they are contractually obligated to do, but employees are also working fewer hours and don't even have to come in at all if they don't want to. Those workers can also take extended breaks throughout the day. Now, while they are optimistic that the weekend rain could mean a return to business as usual, keeping employees healthy, they say, is a priority.
Just with the air quality, I mean, definitely not safe to a certain extent. And when we're doing stuff outside and you're getting pollen and everything in your lungs, this definitely doesn't help that. So if we have to cut things for a few days just to keep everyone in better condition, I'd much rather do that than to have someone out sick.
And all of this smoke coming from massive forest fires in Quebec and northern Ontario. That smoke is blanketing parts of northeastern United States under a thick haze. The low visibility is causing flight delays, and the air pollution is prompting New York City to give away N95 masks to residents there. Chris Reyes has that side of the story.
Over the last couple of days, New York City has had the worst air quality in the world, but conditions are improving, and the skyline behind me gives you a sense of that. This is downtown Manhattan on the East River, and you can very clearly make out the buildings, which was certainly not the case yesterday when the city was engulfed in this very thick smoke. The haze is not as thick today. There's a lingering smell of smoke, but it's not as strong. Some stinging in the eyes, and that's why you're still getting some urgent warnings from New York City's Mayor Eric Adams. He's telling residents to make sure that they limit their outdoor activities, to pick up an N95 mask at a local fire department, to definitely wear it if they're spending any prolonged time outdoors.
These crises that we're facing around our health is something we're going to have to deal with. Climate change is real, and we must be prepared as we are dealing with the issues that come from climate change.
This morning, flights were grounded at LaGuardia and Newark airports because of poor visibility, and even though that's been lifted, that happened yesterday as well, so there's now this backlog of delays. Take a look at this time lapse. You know, yesterday in New York City also started with just that foggy white haze over the city, and then progressively got worse and turned into this really deep orange. A lot of New Yorkers freaked out about that. If you take a look at the front page of the New York Post, over a photo of a hazy, orangey Manhattan, emblazoned in this big headline, it said, "Blame Canada." We talked to other New Yorkers for the reactions to these conditions.
It's distressing. It's very distressing. And as far as Canada, no, I don't blame Canada.
It was apocalyptic feeling.
The orange and the almost steam, yesterday was crazy. Today is actually pretty nice, which is why I'm walking.
An air quality health advisory remains in effect for New York City until Thursday midnight. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
And back here in Ontario, politicians at Queen's Park are about to head off for their summer recess. The opposition NDP taking some parting shots, though, at Premier Doug Ford over his handling of a range of issues.
We've got a non-existent climate plan while communities are dealing with the most severe forest fire season we've ever experienced. We have emergency rooms closing while this government takes healthcare workers to court. A broken transit system held hostage by private contractors.
One word, 670,000 people are putting food on their table, paying a mortgage, buying a home, because we created the climate and the conditions. Order. My Minister of Economic Development sends me a list every single night of companies coming in from all over the world. Mr. Speaker, I have an opportunity to speak to governors and ambassadors all over the world. They're saying, what are you doing in Ontario? You're on fire. You're leading the world.
And that comment from the Premier just there drawing heckles from members of the opposition as the province deals with dozens of active wildfires. The legislature isn't scheduled to sit again until September. Today's final session did bring some positive news for early childhood educators, though, with word the province is set to boost their wages in a bid to ease staffing shortages.
Wages is an important part of how we can incentivize and retain the workforce to stay within our childcare centres, nonprofit and for-profit, and other ways we can further advertise and market these as viable careers for young people and for new Canadians and for others.
Ontario committed in its deal with the federal government on $10 a day childcare to set a wage floor of $18 an hour in 2022 and increase it by $1 a year up to $25. But Lecce said he is listening to calls to go beyond that. Taylor Swift will be performing in Detroit this weekend for her sold-out shows. Many Swifties couldn't get their hands on tickets, and a Windsor woman who thought she did quickly learned she became a victim of a scam. Jody Nesbitt wanted to create a bit of a love story out of her granddaughter's wildest dreams by taking the 8-year-old to her first real concert. Instead, she was duped out of $800.
When this happened, Lily was so shook up, like she was shaking, and she cried and she said, I'm not as upset about not seeing Taylor as I am that there's so many bad people that would do this. And she said, I don't want you to ever be on Facebook. I don't ever want to go on roadblocks. And then I said to her, but maybe this is our lesson. Maybe this is our lesson so that nothing bad ever happens to you.
And the scam here happened on Facebook, but not exactly how you may think. Nesbitt says she saw a Facebook friend post that she had 4 extra tickets at $400 each. She eventually sent the money by e-transfer, but never received the tickets. And that's because her friend's Facebook account had been hacked, and Nesbitt was actually speaking with a scammer. But Nesbitt was able to shake it off, and a local radio station ended up giving her 2 free tickets. Here are some tips, though, from experts to prevent you from getting scammed and generating bad blood with your bank account. They say search the name and email address of the seller on the internet with the words scam or fraud to see what shows up. Take a breath. Scammers prey on a sense of urgency. And they also say check that ticket number and the sections to ensure they actually exist at the venue where you plan on going. Well, you might think of video games as something to pass time. Maybe it's a bit of a hobby you've picked up over the pandemic. We've also seen people take things very seriously with professional sports leagues for gamers, but it turns out there's another side of the video game industry, collecting vintage. The CBC's Tyler Clapp reports.
Heading into Giancarlo Salvatore's basement is a haven for old-school gamers. Beginning in 2000, Salvatore has collected vintage gaming systems. He's got it all from the likes of Nintendo, Sega, and Atari. While it does provide a trip down memory lane, Salvatore says finding new additions is getting harder.
I think people now kind of know what they're worth, you know, and that's another thing too with collecting these systems. It's people want retail for stuff now, and where before you could pick these up and they were a lot cheaper. Now, you'll find them on eBay, stuff like that, but they're super expensive.
According to game pricing site PriceCharting.com, interest in collecting vintage game consoles grew during the pandemic. Aside from increased demand, vintage gaming systems carry big price tags. For example, a mint-condition Nintendo 64 sold in October 2021 for $4,800. Roy McLean owns the Game MD in Windsor. When he's not busy repairing consoles and cleaning discs, customers trade games in for store credit or money. He says those looking to sell vintage consoles should not assume guaranteed payouts.
Condition is everything. Just because you have something that is worth a lot of money doesn't mean that it's worth a lot of money in the condition that it's in. Because collectors are looking for collector quality.
I would spend a little more on it.
This search for quality defines one of Salvatore's most prized consoles.
I think the hardest one, because I wanted to get it in good shape, was the NES Deluxe with Rob the Robot in there. So that was kind of pivotal for me to get it just right.
Salvatore takes great care to keep that quality in his collection, one he spent about $15,000 to put together. That's not the only thing McLean says is key for video game console owners for bigger returns when they go to sell. People should also be doing research on their console's value and protecting it from damp or dry conditions. Whether for nostalgia, fun, or money, it appears there's something for everyone who collects classic video games. Tyler Clapp, CBC News, Windsor.
Still to come here on CBC Windsor News, there's a chance for showers in the forecast, as we mentioned. Colette Kennedy has all of those details coming up next. Time now for a live look at weather, and for that we go to Colette Kennedy. Colette, it's the same story again. Everyone's still talking. There you are.
I'm
I
here.
knew you were somewhere. Everyone's still talking about the smoke, the haze, and all of that kind of thing. It's still really relevant in our neck of the woods.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of getting to the latest projections here so we can get an idea of what's to come. We're actually doing okay right now. When I say okay, I mean we're not low in terms of our air quality on the health index. Low is better than being moderate. We're moderate. But if I kind of show you the forecast, so look at southwestern Ontario, the really bad stuff or denser smoke is going to be in these areas where you get into the oranges, but especially the purples. And as I roll this through time and we go to the evening hours, I do see some of this kind of shifting back due to the wind flow back into southwestern Ontario. And that's why I expect we could see that going up overnight tonight and pushing that air quality into that higher level. So that would be up to maybe around 7 or so into tomorrow morning. Still, it's here in southwestern Ontario. They're getting some relief finally into eastern Ontario, the nation's capital. That air quality has dropped down to a level of 1, which is very, very good there compared to where it was. But then through the day, as we get through later into Friday into Saturday, we're going to see kind of a principal change in the winds as more of a southerly or southwesterly flow gets in here, and this begins to dissipate. So even though it looks like, yes, there sure is still some smoke there, as we head into the weekend, it's going to be diffused somewhat, and so I think things will feel a little bit better and we'll be able to breathe easier. But I just want you to be mindful of tonight and tomorrow morning, how that could be really enhanced and see that popping up. So we're still in that special air quality statement. You do see that into eastern Ontario. It has been lifted because of the improvement. The cloud deck helping with that in a couple of different ways. That cloud deck can kind of keep the smoke in the upper atmosphere from reaching surface level where it's really a problem for breathing. But the other thing is it's brought up, yes, there's some rain in here too, but just even the clouds have brought up the relative humidity, and that's kind of helped put a damper on some of the fires in terms of what has been burning in Western Quebec and into Ontario. So that improves too. There's not as much smoke to bring it down into our region. Going in for a closer look, an isolated shower this evening, not out of the question. I don't see much to that. I think we're actually going to be pretty dry overnight tonight. The smoke, as I showed you, near the surface right now, not too bad. And then as we go ahead into Friday, we will at times see a little more cloud cover coming in later in the day, but there's actually going to be quite a bit of sunshine and a decent day for us if we could keep the air quality on the better side of things. And then we'll see things warming up even more into Saturday. So current temperatures at that 21 overnight tonight. We're going to see that low around 10 degrees, okay, for the overnight reading. And then tomorrow up to 26. Saturday, yes, some upper 20s in here. And then the next best chance for more of a soaking rain, that's coming towards the end of the weekend and into the beginning of next week. And we know how dry it is and how high our fire danger is because of that. So really be nice to get some of that rain coming our way.
It sounds good to hear those words, Colette. Improvements and a bit of relief.
Yes, sure. Yes.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
And still to come, staying on the wildfires, tips on how to stay safe with all of that smoke in the air. That's coming up right after the break. The flooding that followed the breaching of a dam in Ukraine this week has killed at least 14 people so far. That's according to officials from both Ukraine and Russia. But today, rescue efforts were temporarily suspended. The CBC's Chris Brown explains why.
As if having their homes flooded and their lives washed away wasn't grotesque enough, as these Ukrainians were being rescued, Russian artillery opened fire on them.
With the sheriff, this,
Ukraine's chief rabbi on a humanitarian mission to flooded Kherson was one of those forced to dive for cover.
Promote the river and the Russian here.
Ukraine claims 9 people were injured, but it may have been this man the guns were aiming for. President Vladimir Zelensky visited rescuers and met with patients in a hospital. We will rebuild everything, he said. The enormity of the breaching of the dam, which was controlled by Russia, and Ukraine claims destroyed by Russia too, is still emerging, although the many thousands stuck on the South Russian-controlled side of the river appear to be the worst off.
People are really stranded in areas completely flooded without any means to leave.
One hazard are countless unearthed mines that could now wash up anywhere, along with oil, gas, and other pollutants, says this former Ukrainian environment minister.
We have evidence that some cemeteries were destroyed, and unfortunately, that is a great pollution as well.
A pollution from bodies.
Yes, I don't want to say it very loudly.
But even as the enormous rescue effort continued, so did the combat, and Ukraine's counteroffensive may be intensifying. And Russia's defense minister suggested battles are raging. The enemy attempted to attack, he claimed, but we destroyed 30 tanks in 2 hours. Bluster without a shred of proof. Whatever battles may be unfolding, Ukraine's government is staying silent about them, likely for strategic reasons, but also to keep the focus on the expanding humanitarian catastrophe. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Let's go back to the wildfires now and the smoke traveling far and wide. Many people in Windsor have noticed the shift in air quality, especially at night, with Environment Canada saying the air will be at a high risk for your health this evening. Small particles in the smoke not only bother your eyes, nose, and throat, they can also affect your lungs and your heart. Lauren Pelly finds out how to stay safe when the air around you gets dangerous.
The scene in New York, apocalyptic. In Kingston, Ontario, putrid air. And in Toronto, the skyline is mostly smog. People here are feeling the burn.
Most noticeable to me is my eyes are watering and they're stinging.
Kind of feeling it in the throat a bit, little in the lungs. I am slightly asthmatic, so that's why I'm wearing the mask today.
So what's the best way to protect yourself from toxic smoke? Air quality experts suggest taking cues from pandemic precautions.
The same kind of filter people might have bought to remove COVID, from indoor spaces would be very effective at removing the particulate air pollution from forest fires.
Those filters work best while you keep the windows closed to keep smoke particles out.
If you have a large family room where most people are going together, maybe after dinner, then also place a portable air cleaner there.
Experts say if you have to leave the house, keep it brief.
You may still go outside for a walk, but avoid exertion.
And if you need to work or commute outside for longer periods of time, this respiratory therapist says
it is recommended that you protect yourself as much as possible in terms of the air that you're breathing.
That means wearing a good quality mask, ideally an N95. So walk me through. We asked for a refresh on how to wear one.
What you do is you put it over your face.
Depending on the style of mask, put the straps over your ears, or in this case, behind your head. Tighten around your nose and check for any leaks.
Make sure it's a really good tight seal.
It's not a perfect solution to the smog,
but it does help protect you from being exposed in that environment.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
And that's it for us here at CBC Windsor News, live at 6. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, though, for news anytime, head to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor, and you can check us out on social media. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Again, thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.